Why not go straight for the place where the being actually would decide whether to say something or not?
The problem historically has been is that the threshold between being permanently disabling and effective has been so narrow. For one thing is that any type of a non-lethal weapon that would force compliance as far as interrogation wouldn't be appealing to us at all because it wouldn't be used in court.
But of course they don't have those legal constraints inside a shipping container in Al Qaim. But there might have been another use of sound at Guantanamo Bay, something really quite sinister that could explain the mystery of why Jamal was played Chris Christopherson and Matchbox 20 at normal volume.
Six-speed manual or automatic transmission. All-wheel steering. 150 brake horsepower. And it's a diesel. The first diesel to perform like a Saab. The new 9.3 Sports Diesel from just $18,995.
Why has your dad had to have a major operation?
Because he had lung cancer. Caused by smoking.
That sounds horrible and scary. But what happened to you when your mum told you that?
I felt worried because I've always associated cancer with death. I thought my dad was going to die.
What are you thinking when you look at that?
He's changed. His hair, the way he looks really weird now.
What have you learnt from all of these things that have been going on?
Don't smoke. I can smoke.
If you want to stop smoking, call 0800 169 0169.
Sky. What do you want to watch?
You're up to 4 times more likely to give up smoking when you use your local NHS Stop Smoking service with NRT. Call 0800 169 0169.
Higher Energy, the new men's fragrance by Dior.
UK Music Hall of Fame. Join us for the finale. With Madonna, Bono, Rita Marley, Priscilla Presley, performances by Polyphonic Spree, The Thrills, Beverly Knight, Robbie Williams, Paul Rodgers and Queen. UK Music Hall of Fame after Crazy Rulers of the World.
One of the great conspiracy theories is that governments try to control the minds of the people with subliminal, inaudible sounds. At Waco, that conspiracy theory nearly came true. This is Dr. Igor Smirnov. He's a specialist in subliminal sounds. Midway through the Waco siege, the army flew Dr. Smirnov to America. They wanted the doctor to add subliminal messages to the musical bombardment. The idea was to have the voice of God subliminally order David Koresh to surrender. Charlton Heston was going to play the voice of God, and it would have happened, except the army wanted Dr. Smirnov to take full responsibility if anything went wrong. The doctor refused this, and that was that. In the end, this is how the Waco siege was resolved.
I am relaxed. Free flow of ideas come to me now. I enjoy being creative. And then we'd mix that down so I enjoy being creative. I am relaxed. And
Stephen was demonstrating the power of subliminal sounds there. He was whispering for the purposes of demonstration because you can't hear actual subliminal sounds. Stephen told Jim Channon about the power of these sounds during Jim's late 70s Californian Odyssey. He says evangelical churches frequently use them with great success.
that they lace a series of subliminals saying you will give more money to the donations.
In evangelical churches?
Oh, yes, yes.
And what, they blast it during the hymns?
Yes. So again, you need something as a carrier wave so that people don't hear it. But when people are singing, or when there's some pre-recorded music, when the people are walking in, so often nowadays that may not be the choir, it's just a CD that's being played. Well, if that has also mixed underneath it suggestions to give more generously, voila, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the fact that the donations were increased. We hear stories that there's research in military circles, but I'm not privy to that.
Could this explain why Jamal was played Chris Christopherson at normal volume? Were subliminal sounds being played underneath, influencing Jamal to confess? Colonel Alexander says there isn't a chance that subliminal sounds are being used in Guantanamo Bay. He says my producer John Sargent and I are basically crazy for even suggesting it.
Sounds like pixie dust to me.
What's pixie dust?
Magic stuff you sprinkle out and do whatever you want with it. Just, I mean, if you think about it, it makes no sense. I mean, the problem, again, with acoustics is propagation. We know how sound dissipates. It follows very specific physical laws. But how do you do that without affecting us? Anybody who's out there would hear it.
Colonel Alexander said we were nuts to think that the army would even contemplate using subliminal sounds.
As I'm telling you, it is not something that was brought up or addressed, and we covered the waterfront as far as, technologies. And the whole CT or conspiracy theory thing, you'll find a host of these things about how we're, warping their brains and monitoring people and and all that. And it's just nonsense.
We left the Colonel's house feeling suitably chastised, like crazy conspiracy theorists for thinking that the army was using subliminal sounds. And then we found this leaked military document listing the current advancements in non-lethal technologies. And buried away in it, almost subliminally, was this. And here's the list of contributors to this document. When I asked Colonel Alexander to explain this, he said it wasn't his fault if some of his fellow contributors included nutty stuff like subliminal sounds in this secret military document.
But how do you do that without affecting us? Anybody who's out there would hear it.
This struck me at the time as an unassailable argument. Of course it couldn't work. The sound operator would be influenced too. The thing is, I now realised, if subliminal messages had been used against Jamal, there was a clue in Jamal's account, a clue which suggested that the military had craftily solved this vexing problem. Here's the clue.
Or you might like this. Have a listen to this. Put it in, then he left.
You're definitely on the dark side. I don't think anybody went to that lengths of being able to set up that elaborate of a system without some ultimate scheme in mind. We don't experiment on each other, not in our culture.
My conversation with Sid Heal took place just a few weeks before these photographs leaked out into the world. So is Abu Ghraib, like Waco, an experimental interrogation lab teeming with ideas? The Bush administration would have us believe that these are random acts of sadism, but this soldier, Lindy England, spoke to CBS television shortly after her arrest.
What were you thinking when those photographs were taken?
I was thinking it was kind of weird. I didn't really, want to be in any pictures.
Lindy England says she was ordered to pose with the prisoners, and the people who did the ordering were none other than psyops.
I was instructed by persons in higher rank to stand there, hold this leash, and look at the camera. And they took a picture for a psyop, told to stand there, give a thumbs up, smile, stand behind all the naked Iraqis in the pyramid, take a picture. Well, I mean, they were for PSYOP reasons, and the reasons worked. They'd come back and they'd look at the pictures and they'd state, well, that's a good tactic, keep it up. That's working, this is working. Keep doing it. It's getting what we need.
We'd visited PSYOPs in October 2003, the very same month that the Abu Ghraib photographs were taken. I looked back and found an interview with a PSYOP analyst called Dave. Dave was telling me about the leaflets PSYOPs dropped in Iraq, and he was not involved with Abu Ghraib, but I wonder whether the same type of thinking was also behind the prison photographs. Maybe the photographs were PSYOP products designed to scare other prisoners.
We think about what impact they will have from the perspective of Iraqis. You know, how would an Iraqi react to this, not how an American would react to this.
Sure.
And then if the product doesn't do well that way, when we have boards and we go through it and we look at each product separately and how it matches the national themes and objectives, how it matches our PSYOP themes, and whether we think it has potential for success. Then if it passes all our muster, then we'll produce it either here or forward, depending on the situation. It's not like selling Coke, because a lot of times what you're doing here is trying to sell someone something they might not want in their hearts, but know that they have to do in order to survive. So it causes ambiguity and problems. It's like selling someone vitamin D to drink, you know, or something they don't really want, but think they might need to survive.
The musical torture inspired by Jim Channon seemed at odds with Jim's humanist and peace-loving First Earth Battalion manual. And when I first mentioned the Barney torture to Jim, his response was characteristically sweet-natured. He sighed and said how lovely children's music was.
I'm actually quite pleased to hear that. If, as a function of lightening the environment and giving these people some comfort, they would more readily explain where their forces were positioned and shorten the war, damn good.
I think Jim was imagining something more like a creche than a shipping container in the desert heat. So I persevered. I told him exactly how his ideas were being interpreted, but Jim seemed to be in denial, like a grandparent who wouldn't countenance the idea that his grandchildren would ever misbehave. But I guess if they played them the Sesame Street song once or twice, then that's lightening and comforting. But if they play it sort of 50,000 times in a row, that's more torturous.
I'm not a psychologist.
In the army, ideas float around like folklore, but then, when they become concrete, it seems that nobody will take responsibility for them.
Like each of you, I'm sure, and like most Americans, I was stunned. It was a body blow.
The army is supposed to have a logical chain of command, but if crazy ideas like mind control float around like folklore, nobody is accountable when they are put into practice, and so soldiers end up doing whatever they want. In next week's film, we see just how lethal these crazy ideas can get.
That's next Sunday at 8. Jon Ronson's book, The Men Who Stare at Goats, is out, price $16.99. Order and call 0870 123 4344 or hit channel4.com/shop. Next tonight, the final of UK Music Hall of Fame. To make it even more special, Priscilla Presley is there to represent Elvis, Rita Marley to represent Bob. Live performances, glowing tributes, the lot.